Welcome to Justice Talks with Jennifer Burton, where we talk about legal matters that impact your life and your community issues that help you live the best life. The information presented on Justice Talks with Jennifer Burton should not be considered to be formal legal advice nor the formation of a lawyer-client relationship. It's time to talk justice. Now here's your host, Jennifer Burton.
Thanks for tuning in this evening. I'm your host, Jennifer Burton. Justice Talks is dedicated to discussing various legal issues that impact your life, as well as focusing on community issues that impact your health, your happiness, your well-being. Here at Justice Talks, we're going to talk about things that East Tennesseans hear and see and feel on a regular basis. Everything from legal issues to health issues to community things that we see on a daily basis. We might even throw in a little sports here and there just for some spice. This is our very first show, and I just want to let you know kind of what this means to us here at Justice Talks. I'm an attorney here in East Tennessee. I'm also a mom. I'm also a sister, a friend, a Vol for life, and I've been here in East Tennessee about 20 years, so love this area and everything that the people stand for around here. Have chosen to make it home. Just want you guys to know we've lived all over New England, Midwest, and the Southeast, and there's no better set of listeners than here in East Tennessee. We are also at Justice Talks affiliated with Burton McInnish, which is a law firm with offices in Sevierville and Maryville. We service all of East Tennessee, sometimes into Middle Tennessee, and our firm process is kind of why we're here on the radio. We just want to be there for the people of East Tennessee to call and say, hey, we've got a problem or we've got something we want to talk about, and we want to be able to get people where they need to be, whether it's the right sports game, the right summer camps for their kids. We've had a lot of flooding lately in East Tennessee, so where they need have needs there as far as insurance and different resources go there. So tonight we're going to focus on a number of different issues. We're going to talk about some of the flooding that we've seen over the past 2 or 3 weeks here in East Tennessee. We had a record rainfall in the month of February, over 10 inches, which made some of us feel like we were living in Seattle. So as we're moving into March, we're hoping that it won't be quite so soggy. But we are going to have joining us briefly from the Department of Transportation, Mark Nagi, who is a community relations specialist who's going to help us kind of talk about what we can do as East Tennesseans to help each other out, kind of where our resources are if we're having some issues. We're going to move into there and see what kind of update there is as far as the area moving forward with TVA issues and things of that nature. Now, we also are going to have some other guests in the future that are going to be offering just a variety of topics, from what summer camp your kids want to go to some more progressive political topics such as the Me Too movement, some community relations issues between our government, which is strong here in East Tennessee, some people from TVA, from the University of Tennessee, just kind of a diverse population that we're going to have coming on the show to just talk to you guys so that you guys can kind of hear what's going on in your area. Everything from what affects you as you take your kids to school in the morning to what affects you when you're trying to find a church on Sundays to where you can reach out when you just need to get away and have some fun here in East Tennessee and maybe run up to the mountains for a day or two. So we are looking forward to having just this news talk program where we can kind of bring in everything that affects us as East Tennesseans, from our professional life to our home life to our community life. And we just are excited about weaving that all together as we move forward. And I'm going to bring in now Brooks Brown. He is a public relations specialist here in East Tennessee. He has some experience at the university. He started out as an editor of the Daily Beacon way back in the day, over 20 years ago. He also runs a social media firm here that has exploded, and social media has changed the way we look at news and changed the way that we approach different community relations and outreach. And so Brooks Brown is going to jump in now, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he does and how he can help us moving forward.
Hey, Jen, how are you?
Hey, Brooks, good to have you here.
It's good to be here. Man, it has been cold.
I can't decide what to wear, whether I need to wear shorts or I need to put on
I don't know.
toboggan.
I mean, I don't know how we go from 60 with like 8 feet of standing rain, standing water, to what was it last night, like 20 degrees?
I know, and then you never know. I think we've got a few good winters around the corner: dogwood, blackberries, some of those other cold snaps that'll be coming in.
And you've been sick recently.
Oh, I think we've all been sick. I mean, who hasn't had the flu or the stomach bug or something?
I swear. Well, hey, thanks for having me on tonight. And for full disclosure, we work together, both of our companies, Burton McInnish and Shout Out LLC. work together, and I help book your shows, and I'm excited to be a part of this process with you. And just a little bit of background on me. Yep, I've been here for pretty much forever. I run a marketing and public relations firm called Shout Out LLC, and we specialize in everything from pretty much A to Z. We're a small boutique firm. We take on a limited number of clients, and we are blessed to have Burton McInnish. And I think that this was just a really unique opportunity when the station came to us and said, hey, what about Jen having her own show? And you did a segment, what was it, maybe a month and a half ago on Bob Yarborough's show. What was that topic? It was the government shutdown, right?
We were coming in talking about the government shutdown a little bit. Our firm does some Social Security disability work, and there was such a huge impact when the government shuts down, because you see how it impacts not just people that work in the government, but also the private sector. And so that was a great experience for our company, and a great chance to just kind of get on the air. And I think, Brooks, I had shared with you and in some of our planning meetings talking about just how our firm really has a heart for the people of East Tennessee, and how we really want to be that firm where you call in and you say, hey, Jen, look, I've got a family member that's got this problem, or look, I want to give this trademark, and I know you don't really do a lot of trademark work, but where do I turn and how do I handle this? And so we just really want to be that embedded community resource. And so radio is just an awesome forum for us to get to reach out. And it also scratched a little bit of an itch that I have, because I secretly wanted to be a sports journalist way back in the day. And for some reason, I didn't end up getting to be Tracy Wolf on the sidelines for CBS, but I get to be here in the radio booth. So at least I get a little bit of that entertainment value, and some of that journalism itch scratched in my secret wishes as a eighth grader back in the day, watching those UConn Tennessee Lady Vol games that I used to love so much.
Well, you had a lot of fun with Bob, and I think that from a decision perspective, we saw that you were really good, and said, ma'am, News Talk right now does not have a legal show. And when we were in this planning process for this show, as it will unfold over the coming weeks and people will start to understand the programming of it, we kind of sat back and said, instead of having this uber hard-hitting legal show where we're just talking about law issues, for 60 minutes every Saturday night, let's break it up a little bit. So, people, yes, are concerned about various legal issues that impact their lives, but they're also concerned about their community and where they live and what's going on around them. And, in a lot of senses, the law and legal issues touch a lot of the things that happen in our lives that aren't necessarily apparent to us. And so, for those shows that aren't solely dedicated to talking about legal issues, I think we're going to bring in some really cool people. So, in those shows that are kind of more community based, I've heard that you've got this, what you're going to call a legal minute, that'll typically air, in the third or fourth segment, so that there is a component of discussing the law in every single show. So, from a program perspective, I think you feel a little bit more comfortable with that, to be able to bring to the listeners a little bit of variety instead of just going law over and over.
Yeah, that's what, when you turn on the radio, sometimes, even me, and I've got a legal background, obviously, but sometimes I turn on the radio and think, oh my goodness, after about 2 minutes, I'm ready to glaze over and hit the scan button. So I think what we wanted to do, you see this global community evolving in different places, the legal field, the medical field, where you have providers that are cross-training. And so I think this gives a good forum to kind of say, hey, let's give a little bit of legal insight. Let's answer some questions when people come in with questions, and let's help the community out. But also, let's make it a little spicy and a little bit different, and be able to just kind of address some different topics and things that, us as consumers hear about every day, and then we think, oh, I'd love to hear more about, different things that are affecting us. So for example, right now we're coming off 2 weeks of floods. We're heavy on the sports end of basketball, East Tennessee. We're all counting down, I think, to kick off in September for the football team. So, we've got all this different stuff going on. And in the meantime, we're all in those day-to-day lives where we say, hey, there's different things affecting us. And it depends on, whether you have children, whether you don't have children, how old they are. if you're empty nester, just across the board, we wanted a show that was going to kind of reach everybody and just have a little bit of something for all of our listeners.
Sure. Yeah. And speaking of the flooding, I remember I went to Bearden High School, and I remember over there at Ebenezer and North Peters it was either in 98 or 99. But it was at a point where I was driving. So it was either my junior or senior year, and we had a horrible flood over there. And the day before it flooded, I was actually coming back from your office from Maryville the Friday before, the terrible Saturday happened. And instead of coming all the way down Pellissippi Parkway and going on to 40 and getting in that mess, I decided to pull off at the North Shore exit off of Pellissippi Parkway. And I was going through there, and I pulled over into that old Ebenezer and went up behind Bearden High School, and it was raining. And I thought to myself about 98 when that happened, I was like, this was underwater. And then the next day, I see this aerial drone footage of that area completely underwater.
Sure. And
I'm going, oh my goodness. Like I can't imagine. And so, I thought, we kind of talked about the first show and, hey, what big issue has happened here locally, not just in Knoxville, but East Tennessee in general, that is impacting a lot of folks from a legal perspective, and that is potentially flood insurance. Do you have flood insurance? Don't you? What are the issues surrounding that? And so, we thought it would be kind of cool to bring in Mark Nagi from TDOT, and we're going to talk to him the next segment and try to, get some information about what they're doing. So, I don't know what the legal issues are surrounding flood insurance. That's all you.
Yeah.
But it's something that I'm sure is on a lot of people's mind right now as they recover.
I think it is, and I think it catches a lot of people off guard, when we're moving in. So we are going to come back, and in the next segment, we are going to be here with Mark Nagi, a Community Relations Officer for TDOT. And when we come back, we're going to talk with him and see how we can keep our motorists safe, our community safe. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Justice Talks with Jennifer Burton here on News Talk 98.7. Burton McInnish can be found online at burtonmckinnish.com or by phone at 865-233-1105. And now back to your host, Jennifer Burton.
Welcome back to Justice Talks with Jennifer Burton here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. If you're just tuning in, this is our first show, and we're so excited to have you here this evening. Justice Talks is dedicated to discussing legal issues in the area, but we also focus on some community issues with your happiness, your health, things going on in East Tennessee. And before the break, we talked a little bit about focusing on the flooding we've seen over the past few weeks here in East Tennessee. Tonight, we're joined by Mark Nagi. He's a Community Relations Officer for the Tennessee Department of Transportation. He's also a local author. And Mark's going to give us an update on the damage seen across here in the area and let us know kind of what TDOT's doing to help keep our motorists safe and what we as East Tennesseans can do to work with TDOT as we focus on this flooding and kind of how to get through it. So thanks for joining us tonight, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Good. Mark, first, because some of us just don't know you, and some of us might know you in a different capacity than what you're doing with TDOT, but tell our listeners kind of what your role is with TDOT.
Sure. Well, I'm the Community Relations Officer for Tennessee's Department of Transportation in Region 1, and that's the East Tennessee region that stretches all the way from Roane, Morgan, Scott counties, all the way to Upper East. So, we're responsible for more than 9,000 lane miles of interstates and state routes. I get contacted by folks in the public all the time. I speak with members of the media constantly. We're the department, a state department that is, that has a daily effect on the lives of Tennesseans. So we do all that we can every day to try to make sure that folks can get to and from their destinations as efficiently, but most importantly, as safely as possible.
Okay, and Mark, I'm going to ask you, how long have you been doing this?
I have been on the job here for nearly 8 years. I started working here in April of 2011. I had been a sportscaster in the market for 10 years before that, And I've told people time and time again, this is one of the best decisions that I've ever made. I truly love working at the Tennessee Department of Transportation.
Well, and Mark, and I've got to tell you, I've been in Knoxville since 1998, except a little 4-year soiree over in Memphis, but then I came back. This has to be the worst flooding I've ever seen in the East Tennessee area. Have you ever seen anything like what we've had the month of February?
I have not, especially my nearly 8 years here on the job. I mean, this is the time of year when we get potholes, slides, possible flooding across the region, but not to this extent. And that's just because we've had so much heavy rain. We have not had this much rain in the time that I can recall. Other than the rain, it was a fairly mild winter.
Right. We didn't have the snow. We didn't have the, that we normally get.
Yeah. I mean, we're, fully stocked in terms of our supplies of salt. But it's been the near constant rain over the past few weeks that has really had an effect on our roadways. Our roadways have absolutely taken a beating.
Well, and I know, I drive North Shore quite a bit, and so that area is still closed as of the beginning of March. That area right there off Pellissippi and North Shore is still closed. So I have to ask, did TDOT expect this amount of flooding? I mean, I know the rains, we saw the local weather, we saw the national weather that said, hey, we've got these storm systems. Did we expect this extensive flooding when we saw the weather coming in?
Well, our crews prepare to try and get roadways open as quickly as possible, and this is the type of thing that they prepare for all year round. That said, this was a level of rain that we have not seen, and unfortunately, there are areas like that spot on North Shore and other spots where you ended up having a lot of flooding, and the water has receded in most of the areas across East Tennessee, but not all of them. Like that spot still on North Shore. And unfortunately, in some of those areas where the roadways are fairly close to a stream, a lake, a river, a pond, whatever it may be, unfortunately, as slowly and surely as the water recedes, then we end up getting more rain. We just had it on Sunday. We had some heavy rains. We're expecting to get more rains, in the days to come. So it's frustrating. We drive the same roads as everybody else, but at this time, in some of those areas, it's still waited out.
So let me ask you, Mark, because the morning of those floods, I was getting off the interstate out there at Campbell Station and turned left, and that was the exit that was shut down for a while coming off. I can't remember. I think it's 376, but right out there, the Campbell Station exit off of 40 in West Knoxville. What kind of sends you to the point where you say, look, we've got to shut this down. It's just not safe anymore for our travelers, and we're going to make that decision? Because I think it was around 10 that morning I came through, and it couldn't have been maybe 30 minutes later, and that exit was completely shut down. What makes TDOT say, look, we're at a point where we don't trust the motorists to make a good decision necessarily. We want to keep people safe. We need to shut this down just to be super cautious?
Well, the big thing is that we're not going to allow any roadway, any bridge, overpass, ramp, whatever it may be, we won't allow those to be open if we feel that it presents a danger to the motoring public. And, a little bit of water on the roadway, a little bit of standing water, as long as folks are concentrating behind the wheel, it's not that big of a deal. But what you saw there in Farragut at exit 373 off of I-40 was some fairly significant flooding.
Sure.
And if you had a large vehicle, you might have been able to get through it. If you had a small vehicle, you almost certainly would not have been able to get through it. And the whole idea of somebody saying, well, I'm going to take the chance, we don't want that to happen. We don't want anyone to, quote, take a chance on that. So, when we get reports of, in that case, flooding on those ramps, our maintenance crews go check it out. And if the determination is made that we've got to close this thing down, we'll do so pretty much immediately.
Okay, and let me ask you this: as we're heading into this first full weekend here in March, I guess you could say second full weekend. What are we looking at as far as what's still closed? I know we have Knox County spring break coming up. What's still closed around Knox County in particular right now?
Well, in Knox County, there's outside of Knox County, you still have a closure for northbound traffic on Sarah 9 in Anderson County. at Clinton Highway, Knox County, for the most part, except for that spot on North Shore, is in fairly good shape. It's when you start to go outside of Knox County, into Upper East, into Hawkins County, where we have had 2 slides one on State Route 66 and the other on Highway 70 North, is that those roadways are going to be closed for months to come. Fortunately, for a lot of those travelers going on spring break, you at least have 1 lane open on I-40 going into North Carolina, because that had been closed for about a week. But for the most part, in the Knox County area, knock on wood, at least for right now, the roadways are in fairly good shape.
And Mark, can you help us just moving forward? I mean, I know this flooding, at least to me, it kind of seemed, I don't want to say out of the blue, people said, hey, we're going to get a lot of rain, we could have localized flooding, but it just seemed to be a little more dramatic than what we've seen in the past. So what advice can you give motorists in the future when, we start getting rains like this and things get dangerous? Because I saw all over the news the weekend those floods hit, cars out in this water, and I'm thinking, why did you even try to go through there? So, but on the other hand, you've got small kids and they say, oh, we think we can get around, or you're trying to get somewhere and you maybe misjudge how deep the water actually is. I mean, nobody, I think, really thinks, for example, that North Shore of all roads is going to be flooded, especially once you get away from the lake area. So what advice do you give motorists in the future when, we've got rains coming down? How can we be safe?
Well, the big thing is never take the chance, because if it's something that you're looking at and say, I think I can make it, well, that tells you that you may not make it. So turn around, spend the extra 10, 15 minutes it's going to take you to get to your destination. That is always the best thing to do. But also, if there's anything that folks are concerned about, if they see something on their roadways that they think should be addressed, if it's a crack in the roadway, a dip in the roadway, they're looking at something from a slope side that has gotten into the roadway or at least into the shoulder, we want them to let us know what they're seeing. Because, again, like I said earlier, we're responsible for more than 9,000 lane miles. We don't see everything immediately. So we call on the public to give us a hand if they see something in their area that they're concerned about. So we ask them to call us at 865-594-2408 to report those things to us. And then just as far as daily driving, never drive distracted, never drive drunk, never text and drive. Those are extremely, extremely dangerous things to do, especially with the phones. I see it on the roadways every single day where people are looking down at their phones, because you don't think that you're going 55, 65 miles an hour. You just think that you're just driving in your car and everything is fine. You're not thinking about the high speed that you're going. And if you're looking down at your phone for a couple of seconds and the car ahead of you brings their car to a stop quicker than you had expected, well, that's when you can see a lot of accidents and a lot of serious crashes occur.
Okay, Mark, I think here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a little break, and thank you for your work that you do. And when you come back, I'm going to just follow up with a few short things, and then we will let you get back to your job at TDOT. But we really appreciate you being with us here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
You're listening to Justice Talks with Jennifer Burton here on News Talk 98.7. Burton McInnish can be found online at burtonmckinnish.com or by phone at 865-233-1105. And now back to your host, Jennifer Burton.
Welcome back to Justice Talks with Jennifer Burton here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. We were just talking to Mark Nagi with the Tennessee Department of Transportation about the recent flooding here in East Tennessee. Mark, thanks for hanging on with us and coming back for another segment.
Jennifer.
Just have a couple of questions. Just wanted to kind of follow up. You had mentioned that there was a number we could call, that 865-594-2408 if we are ever out and we see a road and we have any concerns at all. So if you're out there and you're a listener and you get somewhere and you see something that concerns you, call Tennessee Department of Transportation. I think it's better to be on the safe side than say, I'm not going to call, and then let a motorist behind you kind of fall into havoc. Is there a website or a social media, Mark? Is there somewhere we can go if we have these floods where we can go and see up-to-date information about what's closed, areas we need to avoid, anything, as far as up-to-date specifics on the roadways here in East Tennessee?
Sure. The best way for folks to know what's going on our interstates and state routes is with our TDOT SmartWay system. It gives real-time information as to crashes, construction activities, lane closures, and especially the traffic cameras, which can let folks know what's going on immediately. That's accessible at tn.gov, or I'm sorry, that's accessible at smartway.tn.gov. We do, though, ask that folks do not use that when they are behind the wheel. If you're in your vehicle, have a passenger use that system. So once again, that's the TDOT SmartWay system. It's also accessible at the TDOT website at tn.gov/TDOT. We also have our TDOT Instagram page, Facebook page, YouTube page. So we're, as dialed in, on social media as can be. And if folks want to follow me on Twitter, I try to put information out as quickly as I can as well. My Twitter address is Mark, MarkNagi, TDOT, Mark Nagi, TDOT.
Okay, Mark, thank you so much. I have one final question for you from TDOT.
Sure.
Who puts up those hilarious messages on those TDOT boards all over East Tennessee? They always give myself a chuckle, my kids a chuckle. We enjoy seeing those. They have a great safety message behind them, but also just a gentle reminder, hey, don't text and drive. Don't, remember your dads are working on these roadways, your moms are working here. Like, let's just be safe. Who puts up those clever but yet catchy messages on TDOT?
Well, that's a team effort with our Community Relations Division, which is based at our TDOT headquarters in Nashville. It's something that we've done for the past couple of years. Folks seem to really enjoy it, and it's the type of thing we're trying to put those important messages on those overhead message boards and try to have a little bit of fun sometimes at the same time.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for being with us this evening. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And for our listeners here, it's so important. I think that we take our roadways for granted, and then I think we have a gentle reminder every time there's flooding or any kind of big disaster how important it is to be able to get where we're going safely, so our loved ones come home to us, so we get to work safely, our kids get to school safely. So, Mark, we really appreciate you coming out, and we appreciate all the work that the good work that you guys at TDOT do to keep us safe. And I appreciate you for coming on the show today.
Of course, Jennifer. You have a great day.
Thanks, Mark, and we'll catch up with you soon, we hope. Guys,
Right.
Back on News Talk 98.7, we're going to kind of transition here into what happens. We've had these floods, we've had these issues. So now what do we do? Because if you're a homeowner and you're like a lot of East Tennesseans, we live here in the mountains, the beautiful mountains of East Tennessee. A lot of us don't live in what is classified traditionally as floodplains, unless you're right on the river. So, what do you do when you have this kind of extensive damage? And a lot of us do not have homeowners insurance that includes flood coverage. So we're going to talk a little bit now, moving forward, and just say, okay, what can we do moving forward? I want to help you guys as listeners be prepared if we have this in the future. So there's some random things that I didn't even know until I was preparing for today and getting ready. And even in the legal field, things I don't think about, I take for granted. Those homeowners policies that we get in the mail, I don't know if you're like me, but a lot of times they come in, they're a big, thick book, and I take them and I put them in the filing cabinet. I never open them again. So the question is, do you have homeowners insurance that includes flood insurance? That's something that a lot of people may assume they have. You may assume that you live in a floodplain, but actually, and this is something that is just mind-boggling, only about 12% of U.S. households have actual flood insurance. And you don't really know how damaging water is. You think, okay, it's water, and maybe you have just some minor flooding. A lot of people have moisture in the basement, that sort of things, but water can be so damaging, and it can cause, even just 1 inch of water can bring over $20,000 in damages to the average U.S. home. And some people, unless you're, if you're like me, you think, hey, my homeowners is going to cover this. Well, after these floods, I pull it out and I start reading through it and saying, oh my goodness, there's not flood insurance in here. So that is really something that I think has shocked a lot of people. I've gotten a lot of phone calls just in the past week saying, hey, I thought I had flood insurance. Why didn't my homeowners cover this? And what a lot of people don't understand is that flood insurance is actually outside of traditional policies. It has to be purchased usually separately. It is not that expensive. Amazingly enough, flood insurance, actually, it comes through the National Flood Insurance Program. it only runs most people around $80 a year. Now, there's some different, as with any kind of insurance programs, and I'm not an insurance expert by any means. So call your local insurance person and say, hey, we've had these floods. I want to check out and see if I've got this or not. But flood insurance itself individually comes from a national flood insurance program. It's usually a rider on your homeowner's insurance policy. Like I said, it can be $80 to $100 a year. It's not super costly in most areas. However, it's something that a lot of people, unless you live in what's considered what we call a designated flood area, it's not something that a lot of people have. So what do you do when you've had this flood and you're sitting here and you're going, oh my goodness, like I've got all this water damage? And most people, do you have 20 grand sitting in the bank to fix your home, to fix your business? Some people, the answer is no. And so you're sitting here and you're thinking, what do I do? So here's a couple of ideas. There's some things you can do ahead of time. One, if you don't have flood insurance, or if you don't know that you have flood insurance, pull out your rental policy, pull out your homeowner's insurance policy, read through that booklet. I know that it's dense, I know that it's boring, but read through there. If you have any questions, call your insurance agent and just say, hey, look, I'm not sure if this is covered. If it's not, what do I need to do? Most insurance agents are super helpful. You can shoot them an email, you can call them, and you can say, hey, look, I want to make sure I've got this in case this ever happens again. A lot of people, when floods happen, turn to the Federal Emergency Management Association. They turn to FEMA. FEMA got a lot of flack back in the years when we were around Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Rita. If you remember that back in the mid 2000s. But FEMA has really evolved over the years. They've done a lot to kind of update their website, update the programs that are available to listeners. The problem with FEMA that comes in with flooding is that FEMA only applies once you've had that federal disaster designation. So, you've got to have that designation. And if you don't, that designation happens a lot of times when we see hurricanes come in. I know in 2017, we had some really bad hurricanes and some floods over in North and South Carolina. And they got the designation that, this is a federal emergency area. And so FEMA was able to step in. Here in East Tennessee, if that's not happened, what can you do? There's some simple home remedies you can do. If you see that you have flooding, the first thing to do, open all your windows, open everything you can so that mold doesn't set in. A lot of mold or mildew damage is not covered, even in these flooding policies, when you have adjusters come in and say, hey, look, this could have been avoided by the homeowner. Now, yes, that's very subjective, but you really don't want to get in this protracted battle with your insurance company saying, hey, this should be covered, this shouldn't be covered. So, do what you can as a responsible homeowner or responsible renter to kind of avoid as much damage as you can. Things that you can do to that is, one, just read your insurance policy. Get in there, roll up your sleeves and say, hey, look, do I have it? Do I don't? If you're not sure, or if the policy is just too dense, like mine, so dense, I don't know that I'd want to read the whole thing cover to cover and parse through all the language. Call your agent and say, listen, I want to make sure I have this coverage, or I don't think I have this coverage. Do I need it? The other thing you can do if you have flood damage, take pictures. Right when you come back in, take pictures. Carpet damage, drywall damage, anything like that. Take a lot of photographs so we know what it looks like right when you come back. The other thing you can also do is just keep track. If you do have flood insurance, this is just some tips, is keep track of what the wind speeds were in the storm surge. And you may say, Jen, that sounds crazy. Why would I do that? Well, there are some riders in these insurance policies we see that say if winds get over a certain amount, that's actually hurricane related. That's not going to be flood related. So you want to be able to kind of be, super tedious when you record these things and say, look, here's what the information was on that day, so that you don't get into where you get some loophole in your insurance and all of a sudden you have a lot of damage and you're not getting covered. If you're paying for that coverage, you want to be able to utilize it. There's some, if we look back over history, there was Superstorm Sandy. I don't know if you guys remember back in 2012 that decimated, the New Jersey area, New York, and you look up there and a lot of New Yorkers were able to collect just because the governor mandated it wasn't a hurricane event. So we're going to come back in just a little bit here on News Talk 98.7, and we are going to continue talking about how to protect yourself in this flooding area.
You're listening to Justice Talks with Jennifer Burton here on News Talk 98.7. Burton McInnish can be found online at burtonmckinnish.com or by phone at 865-233-1105. And now back to your host, Jennifer Burton.
Welcome back to Justice Talks with Jennifer Burton here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. We were just talking earlier with Mark Nagi from the Tennessee Department of Transportation. We've been talking a lot tonight about the floods that have hit East Tennessee, and I have Brooks Brown here with me from Shout Out PLC. He is someone I work with on a regular basis. He does a lot of media work. He's lived in Knoxville for a really long time, and Brooks is here. We're just going to kind of go over a couple of things just to help our listeners as they move out of the floods that we've been experiencing. And I know that if you didn't get hit by it, it was one thing, but a lot of businesses got hit by it. A lot of local businesses, I think, that weren't expecting it. So, Brooks, can you kind of run us down? What did you see from your perspective? I know you live out in West Knoxville. Like, what did you see out that direction?
Yeah, it was crazy because we kind of live off of Middlebrook, a couple miles down from where Middlebrook meets Cedar Bluff Road. And remember at the top of the show, I was telling you about that flood back in like 98, 99. The area over at Ebenezer and North Shore and South Peters Road, that flooded back then, but also there's an area over there where Cedar Bluff Road runs into Fox Lonas, which is kind of right where that Knoxville Catholic High School is.
Oh, yeah, over there.
All Saints Catholic Church. And there's a strip mall there. It's got like an Aaron's Rent-A-Center,
little Mexican restaurant,
Japanese restaurant, I think like a UPS store. And I remember Tirsa Smith from WATE had posted a photo on Twitter, and I was like, I just saw the place. The place had at least, those places had to have like 3 feet of standing water in them.
I saw that same photo you're talking about, and it was just, it looked horrific. It looked like those photos, I don't know if you remember years ago when the Mississippi flooded. Yeah. It looked like almost like one of those. Like it was just It was so bad. And you don't think, when you think about flooding in Knoxville, or at least I do, I think about, okay, the river, obviously, or anywhere there's, sometimes Third Creek down on campus, I know gets out of its bounds a little bit, but you don't think about the Cedar Bluff area flooding, or at least I don't,
Well, I guess they call it that 100-year flood concept because, we're talking about, between 98 and 99 and then 2019. And so my question was, when I saw that, I was like thinking, all right, well, over there off of North Peters, Ebenezer, those people that lived there and owned homes there back in 98, 99 that experienced that flood, they know that it's prone to flooding over there, right? Or maybe your realtor says, hey, by the way, if you go on, and there's a website called KGIS.org, and that is where the county and the city have a map, and you can use all these little legend things to show you different stuff on the map.
Right, you can look at parcels and owners and addresses and things like that. Yeah.
Right, and there's one that you can click on for flooding.
Sure.
And it'll show you the area just of, probability of having flooding down by the river is really high, obviously. But in some of those areas, like that area over there in Ebenezer, it's kind of marked as one of those that says, hey, this can flood. And so I remember the Cedar Bluff area flooding back in 98, 99, but I don't ever remember it getting into businesses like that. And unfortunately, I was watching the news, last week one night, and was watching those owners when they were able to finally get back in there, when the water had receded to a level that it wasn't in the door still. And a couple of those businesses had cut the drywall. Sometimes when you see that a house had flooded, they'll cut the bottom 3 feet of the drywall off, because it's going to mildew and mold. And you still have a viable house to save. They just, unfortunately, you got to cut the drywall around the whole house and redo that. So I saw some of the businesses that had gone ahead and done that, and then I saw some others that were just trying to kind of push broom the water out and put a couple of dehumidifiers in there and cross their fingers. And I thought, I bet you they don't have flood insurance in those places.
The problem is, too, in this situation, there's such a small percentage of the American population as far as residential owners that have flood insurance. But business owners is the same thing. You have a lot of small business owners, and they're trying to cut costs everywhere they can. And, you have a lot of moms and pops operations. I own a small business here in East Tennessee. I don't know why unless you're in a floodplain, why would you buy flood insurance? Right. It's not something you probably think about when you think about insuring your employees. You think about insuring, yourself. You think about insuring your building from fire, theft, that sort of thing. But I think flooding is something that, and even if you live along the river, we're controlled by TVA. There's a lot of water flow capabilities with the Tennessee River with the dam system that we have in place. And so I think it's something a lot of business owners, small business owners, it just wasn't on really their radar at this point. And so now they're stuck. They've got no insurance. The other thing that's just really sad that I've had a lot of people call in and say, hey, look, I have flood insurance, but it doesn't cover what I thought it would.
Yeah.
It doesn't cover as much as I thought it would. When you look at that, the maximums on this, you're looking at maximum policies sometimes, on a residential of up to, $250,000, or you're looking at content coverage of $100,000.
Right.
That's a ton of money, unless you're looking at some really advanced equipment. And then that $100,000 can go pretty quickly, depending on what your business is. And so, it's really sad for some of our businesses around here, and our just, to our listeners out there, our hearts are with you. We are really just, we hope that this show has helped you somewhat to know kind of what you can do in the future, what you can't do. If you have any questions, you can also go to the Department of Transportation for Tennessee, their website. You can go on to their division of claims if you have claims, and they've got some resources there that will help you walk through. Department of Transportation has social media sites on Instagram, some things like that. So if you have any questions, go out there and Google that. If you have questions and you don't have internet access, or you're having trouble kind of navigating, call that 865-594-2408 number. If they can't help you, they're going to get you to somebody who can. The other thing is that, on a larger scale, go to FEMA. Start at FEMA and say, look, I've got this issue. Where can I go? Even though this wasn't a federal disaster zone, they do have volunteers there. They do have staff members as well who can kind of point you in the right direction. Call your insurance agent. Sometimes they have resources who can say, hey, here's just some good things you can do as far as getting ahead of flood damage, just from a practical perspective, bringing in some air fans, opening windows. The problem with small business owners is you don't want mold to set in. You don't want to have a situation where your staff, your team members in the future, your clients, are exposed to things that can be damaging to their health. You really want to protect those that you serve.
Yeah. And I think that number that Mark gave out when he's talking about claims, I heard a report one night. It's not funny, but I heard that there was a pothole on I-40 or 640, and it had filled back up with rain, and it was dark. So you can't even really see it.
Right.
But apparently it was I'm not kidding, it was 3 feet deep. And these cars kept hitting it. It's like those videos that you see of the cars that are trying to slide in the snow on the interstate. It's just piling up. 6 cars in a row hit this pothole, and I don't know. I mean, that could total your car, not only wreck your car, but and so I think that those, any damage incurred by the roadway, are claim worthy to give TDOT a call. And then, if you don't have flood insurance for your house, reaching out to FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program and just Googling that is a great idea. But before we get out of this show, Jen, I just wanted to ask you, we got a couple minutes left, and I think it's really important as we move forward to try to set the tone for, what this show is going to be about and what you're about and what you do. And you have a couple of areas of law that you specialize in. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about those?
Yeah, we did. I graduated law school back in 2005, and one of the things when I went to law school, I was going to save the world, do public interest, public relations, and as I got through school, I really felt a draw to family law. One, I love kids. Those who know me, I nannied to get through law school. I just have a real heart for kids. And family law was an area where I thought I could really help hurting families that have custody issues, families that have, going through divorce, which can be such a hard and painful time. I know that from a professional level, a personal level, it's an awful time. So really had a heart for being able to help these families. And so our firm does a lot of family law work. We work as a team. That's, Brooks, that's one thing I love about Burton McInnish is we're not one of those firms where it's like, oh, we're stuffy and, I'm an attorney and you're a paralegal and you're a receptionist and
you've got some awesome people.
Here's these divided lines. No, we have a great team and we work as a team and we play off all our strengths. We joke that we've got a couple of associates and we all have our strengths. Some of us are great writers. Some of us are great in the courtroom. Some of us are really good at just, holding our client's hand and saying, hey, let us get you through there. So we really pride ourselves in talking to our clients, seeing what their legal needs are, being honest with them. We're not one of those firms that, we do a lot of Social Security disability work as well. We're not one of those big national firms that get you in and you never see your attorney. I do a lot of our Social Security work now. I've started branching into that in the last couple of years. And, I really have a heart for these families and getting to know these clients and kind of moving them forward. And we say that we're a full service law firm, and what we mean by that, Brooks, is we want people, I've got families I've worked with since I came back to East Tennessee back in 2006 who will call me and say, hey, my kid's graduating, they're getting their first mortgage, I need a title attorney. And I'll say, I don't really do title work, but let me get you to someone who's great, who I know could help you. That's kind of what our vision is as a firm. Our vision is to be full service. And by full service, that means, people call us and say, hey, Jen, I'm starting a new business. Okay, great. I've got this associate. We're going to help you. We're going to set up your PLC. We're going to get you with a great CPA. We're going to help you with some banking relationships. We really are taking kind of a holistic approach and to the practice of law. It's something new. It might not be very sexy. It might not be very popular necessarily, but it's something that our clients have grown to love. And it has really, Brooks, I've been so blessed. I've been back in East Tennessee since 2006 after finishing law school and came back here. And I've just been able to really just be involved with our families, and so we love that. So we do primary practice areas, family law, Social Security, disability, workers' comp, personal injury, but we also tell our clients we're everything you need. Like, you call us and we will get you to the right people. And Brooks, sometimes on our divorces, it's to find a great counselor so we can keep these marriages together. Sometimes it's our juveniles that need some issues and some help. So, I look forward, listeners out there, I really look forward. I'm so thankful for the opportunity for Justice Talks, and I look forward to being a part of the News Talk Radio here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. Justice Talks, I can't wait to see what the future holds for us. Look forward to being back next week. Thanks, guys.
Good job.